Well, he's a smiling Jordan Reffett as he joins us here on the latest edition of Puck the Huskies Podcast, all brought to you by Georgetown Brewery, locally owned and operated. Manny and Roger, they are two diehard Huskies, and they've been pouring the best local craft beer for the past 23 years. Makers of Manny's Pale Ale, Bodie's Alpha IPA, and a host of your other favorite beers. Taproom open 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week. You can visit them at georgetownbeer.com. Jordan Reffett with us. He's you can follow him on Twitter at Jordan Reffett. Played, of course, at UW 2004 to 2007. He is a husband. He is a father. He's an entrepreneur. He's a Husky fan, and he joins us here on the episode of Puck the Huskies. No Elise Woodward this week. Life got in the way, Jordan.
Rough. Like I said, she made us all look good. So this will be a rough episode visually for some folks, but
this is the episode where you just want to listen to it, not watch it, is what you're saying?
Exactly.
All right, 26-21 over USC. Now, I didn't think if the other team got more yards, they were allowed to win.
You know, it's weird. It's when that happens, it's a freak accident for the other team to win. That's for darn sure. I know that, but we pulled it out. Okay.
Yeah.
And I told you we tried to lose the game. We did try to lose the game and say, hey, you guys got more yards than us? We're going to go ahead and put 12 men in the huddle here and give you the ball back. How's that sound?
How nervous were you on that final drive?
Oh, my gosh. You talk about, what's so bad about it is that that you could have had the game over. So it's almost like that bad, doom feeling of, okay, well, we could have put this game away. Now we gave them another chance. And it was absolutely horrific. My stomach was in knots, and I was very close to vomiting several times, but we made it through.
I was watching that game with a mostly Husky partisan crowd led by one Stephen Ernest Sandmeyer.
Nice. I love Sandy. Love it.
And just he was probably whatever you were like is what I can imagine. I was watching it transpire in real time in front of my face. The anger, the angst.
Oh yeah, I could see Sandy just letting it rip after that penalty there on third down, and it was funny too because he loves the Huskies, but he's got a little bit of cynic in him, just a little bit.
Well, he doesn't like Fisch.
Yeah, he doesn't. And I know there's guys like that, and that's why it's different for some guys and he's not the aw shucks, really likable guy like you look at DeBoer, but there's some guys that just don't like Fisch. I like Fisch. We're okay. It's going to be okay.
Okay. Do you think a game ball should have been given to Lincoln Riley because he decided he wasn't going to give the ball to his best player more?
100%. No, 100%. And actually, Lincoln Riley, you guys think I'm bad with, a couple plays here or there, we'd be 7-0. Lincoln Riley, you got to watch his press conferences, okay?
He does. He says it every time. I know what you're talking about.
It's funny. And actually, Lincoln Riley, it is so interesting for me. Without these out-of-this-world quarterbacks, he has been one of the most pedestrian coaches in all of college football. And really, he's fleecing the USC Trojans. They have so much talent down there in that hotbed and recruiting and even on their team now. And for them not to be able to be 500 is a crime right now.
Yeah. You're right. He's stealing money.
Yeah.
He really is stealing money from that school. And they owe him $88 million. If they want to get out of it, which there's already talk and rumors and of them trying to move on at the end of the year. Jen Cohen, for those who don't know, I'm sure many of you do, is the AD. If they want to make a move, they'd have to come up with $88 million to get him out. Yeah, I just listen. Woody Marks had 22 carries. He was averaging almost 6 yards a carry. Besides Ashton Genty, he's the best running back in the country. And you just sat there and allowed your quarterback to throw it 50 times. It's just, and it's that Mike Leach tree, and I love Mike Leach, but that's where he comes from. It's just asinine. It's just asinine.
Especially against the Huskies, right? Where our strength on defense is our back end, right? It's our secondary and our pass defense. I don't know why. You look at even Rutgers and Iowa. I mean, the teams that beat us, even the Cougs, they beat us with their legs. I mean, they have big back-breaking plays with the run game. So, for me, I love it. I mean, the more they throw it, we couldn't get as much pressure on the quarterback, which I would have liked to see. But I love our secondary. I mean, I have no problem putting those guys up against some of the best wide receivers in the game. So as long as they don't run it, I'm happy. Because we're really actually thin on the defensive line. I mean, that's just the way it's been. We talked about that week after week. So if teams are going to try to throw the rock, I'm happy about that. That's fine with me.
I agree. It plays into the strength of the team. All right, so they're 5-4 now. They're 3-3 in conference play. They got Penn State coming up this week. They're coming off that tough loss to Ohio State. They got final 3. They need 1 to become bowl eligible. How many wins do you see? Do you see just 1? Do you see multiple? Where are you at?
No, I think that, when we look at it, I think realistically they're at a 6-win team this year. Obviously, going to Happy Valley, the number 6 team in the country, and then going to the number 1 team in the country at Oregon, who is going to be looking for payback. Their best chance to get bowl eligible is going to be against UCLA. They play really well at home. I mean, at Husky Stadium, they have done really, really well. And I don't know if it's obviously the travel and all that stuff that goes along with it. Obviously, moving from the Pac-12, going down to Oregon State or Cal or USC is a lot better than going to Rutgers or Iowa or wherever, Indiana. So I think that plays a part in it, where the Huskies have not been a good road team. But also, there's a chance this weekend that I think they have a better chance against Penn State than they do against Oregon. I think that Penn State's offense is not going to put up 50 points like Oregon's could, or UCLA's could potentially. Some of these big juggernaut offensive teams. So for me, I think it's an opportunity for the Huskies to keep the game close, because Penn State is a team that grinds it out. They're going to be a team that wins 20-3 or 20-10. So if they have an opportunity in the fourth quarter, the Huskies have some guys, and they've played well on the road at times. It's a lot about consistency. There's a lot of coaching that has to go into that too. You got to call a good game. You got to play to your strengths. You got to make sure you protect Will Rogers. But I predicted a couple weeks ago they'd be 7-5. They're going to have to win at Happy Valley and at UCLA if they have a chance to get to that.
Yeah, it just seemed, and then you play the emotion game, right? It's the emotion game for Penn State. They're coming off that tough loss against Ohio State, and now they get a turnaround where they welcome in Washington. So that, I don't know, that you played it at the highest level. I mean, that can work both ways. One, the turnaround, get the bad taste out of your mouth against a conference opponent, or what happened last week lingers.
Yeah, no, and I think that's where the Huskies could get an advantage right now, because Penn State could be in a mode of the poor me. There were some bad calls in that game. That game could have really went either way. So the guys, if we can have Ohio State help beat Penn State when we play them, kind of that next week hangover, that would be huge. And I'm not really sold on this great Franklin coaching tree, or the Franklin coach there at Penn State. I mean, they've done well with recruiting. They got a really great offensive line, good defensive line. But the skill players, I think Washington lines up really well. I mean, quarterback-wise, wide receiver, running back, which we talked about, those are the strengths of this Husky team. So if they can protect him, they can score some points and get in the red zone, which they've done better at the last couple of weeks. They have a chance because, like I said, this is not an offensive juggernaut. Maybe that hangover continues into this week, that poor me attitude that sometimes sneaks in when you don't win a game that maybe you thought you should have. So it's a big opportunity for the Huskies. It'd be a signature win. We thought Michigan was a big signature win, and it was a big win. That we lost them in the national championship game, but Michigan was not the team, obviously, that a lot of people thought that they were going to be. They're in that maybe fringe top 25, not even top 40, something like that. USC, same thing. It's a big win, but they're not a championship caliber team. So if Fisch goes into enemy territory on the road and wins a game like this, I think it went over a lot of those guys like Sandy and some of these guys where they're still in a prove it to me stage with Coach Fisch. I've been impressed with Coach Fisch and the staff and what they've went through. And like I said, our underbelly was slit by Coach DeBoer with the staff and losing 46 guys. So this is a signature opportunity for Coach Fisch, and it's an opportunity to shock the world and be on the national stage and hopefully start climbing back to where we can compete for championships again, which this year obviously is not it.
I asked a couple of people this question this week, Jordan, just about the Seahawks and about Mike McDonald. And the question was, hey, after 9 games, just do you think they made the right hire? And it's okay to say, I don't know, and I need to see how the season plays out, and I need to see the offseason and what have you. Is it, I'll just ask that question about Fisch. What do you feel? Do you think they made the right hire in him?
For me, I do. I do for a couple reasons. And the main reason is because we needed a guy like Coach Fisch to come in and be a CEO, not just an X's and O coach, not just a guy that comes in and recruits, not just a guy that does 1 or 2 things. He's a big picture guy where you talk about facilities, competing in the Big Ten, NIL. He embraces that stuff. And we really needed that at Washington. I think people forget about that stuff when they look at the on-game performance where, we probably would have been great to win a couple of those games that we lost, but we're looking at the future and long-term. And, people say he's going to be gone a year or 2. I don't believe that either. I could have egg in my face next year or 2 years from now, but he's trying to build up Washington to be able to compete in the Big Ten, which we were not ready this year because of what happened with losing our coach, losing half our team, trying to build a roster. All of those things was something that Washington had to have. It would have been tough to do with a different style of coach, with a guy that maybe comes from a smaller ranks or maybe a coordinator. They don't have that type of experience of building a program, and that's what Washington needed at that time.
There's always going to be something that you can look at, doesn't matter what coach it is, that you're like, I wish we'd be better here. Or and then on the flip side, hey, I really like, what he has done or what they have done. What would, I ask you that, what would that be on both those fronts in terms of how you feel about Fisch?
So one of the big things that I think that has been talked about till a lot of us are blue in the face, but the discipline aspect, penalties, clean football, those are things that we have the details. I really think because Fisch is a big picture guy, and I don't know, I haven't been at a ton of practices, I've been to a couple, that sometimes the details look like they've been missed in opportunities to win football games, right? The WSU game, the Rutgers games. We had a chance to win those games, and because of discipline, play calling, penalties, we end up losing those games, not really because of anything the other team did in that certain instant, but we had some self-inflicted wounds, right? So I think those are things that have to change. And I talked about it after the USC game, that I was ecstatic that we won. The Huskies came out and probably played their best half of football in that first half. They were super clean. They were scoring touchdowns in the red zone. They did a lot of really good things. But in that second half, that discipline aspect came up. Coming out of a timeout with 12 players on the field is inexcusable at any level. I don't care if you're coaching Ballard, Pop Warner, it's inexcusable at any level. And those are the things that keep popping up.
Yeah.
They keep popping up. And not to say, like I said, I support Fisch, I support the staff. I think they have a really good staff. But those are things that have to change.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that stuff up, though, because that's a lot of the conversation about Mike McDonald and the Seahawks.
100%.
It's like the same thing. If I asked that question, you would be responding to the same thing about what's been going on with him.
Coach McDonald, the thing that bothers me so much is really the extracurriculars, the body language, the fights on the sideline, obviously the penalties. Those are things that, yes, John Snyder is to blame for the poorest offensive line and the worst offensive line in all of the NFL by far. I mean, you look at some of these guys' grades in terms of giving up pressures. I mean, they're double what some of the next guys are. So, John Snyder deserves a huge portion of that. But the body language and the discipline and all that stuff, I was disappointed coming from Baltimore that has a super clean program. They do things the right way. I've been really, really disappointed in what he's allowed to happen on the sideline and really body language-wise and the talking back to coaches. And I know they're men. It's different, and they're frustrated. But that's stuff that can't happen if you want to be successful.
Why do you think you said they were not ready for Big Ten play? I want you to dive deeper into that. What specifically were they not ready for?
Well, I think the big thing is, and we've touched on this, is that offensively and defensively, our offensive line and defensive line were extremely thin. And not to say that last year Washington would have probably won the Big Ten, but this year we lose 46 guys. We have to build this program up. And Coach Fisch was very vocal about this early on. I think that he knew the situation that he was getting into, that, hey, nobody's ever done this before. We got 46 new guys. We're trying to patchwork an offensive line, so he knew what he was getting into and that this team was not ready as it was left. I think anybody could have told you that. So getting to the Big Ten is a little different than the Pac-12, where it is true. You don't see the 63 to 59 games in the Big Ten, right? The Cal versus Washington State. You don't see a lot of that in the Big Ten. And the weather's colder. You start going to Penn State. You start going to Indiana. You got to run the football. You got to be built inside out. And in the Pac-12, it was all quarterbacks, skill guys, and they were some of the best in the country. Don't get me wrong, but it was just a different feeling of having to run the football in November in Happy Valley is going to be different than throwing the ball down at SC in November.
Why do you think it's been the smooth transition, easier transition for a team like Oregon?
So for me, a lot of it comes back to recruiting and NIL, and also the ability to have a brand that is built by an outside figure. They are Nike. Everyone outside of Oregon. So it's a totally different. I mean, I would much rather say Indiana, which is similar to UW in terms of, obviously they're not as big in terms of football, but Cignetti has built an amazing program so far at Indiana, similar to how Washington needs to continue to build, where he did bring all the best players from JMU, which was a top 25 team, but they can run the football. I was so impressed with Indiana's offensive line. They are guys that can play, and they're not 2-star guys, they're not 4 or 5-star guys. They are guys that were built up in a program, whether it was JMU or Indiana, and now they're a 5th-year senior, 4th-year junior, and they're some of the top offensive linemen in the country. So to me, that's how you got to build it. Oregon can build it every year because they have a lot of money, and they have a brand called Nike that brings in shiny recruits, and they have the flash, and they have all the stuff. And to me, it's just a little bit different when Oregon can go pick the best quarterback available in the portal. They can go get the best DB in the portal. They can go pick the best wide receiver in the portal just because of money and NIL.
Why? Okay, this is, I think, a confounding question. There is, of all these schools that are in college football, like let's just take the 30 biggest schools, right? Yeah. And I'm going to throw Washington in one of those. Now, I'm not talking record-wise, just history of college football.
Right.
They are one, and what USC would be the other, that are actually in like I may miss a school here, but in like a metropolitan, they're in a city.
Yeah.
A city with great wealth. I mean,
Absolutely.
We're talking the 12th largest market in the country. That's just TV. But in terms of like Fortune 500 and money and companies, I mean, we're talking top 3. I mean, it's LA, New York, and probably Seattle.
Yeah.
And I guess what I don't like Motlake Futures, but I guess what I don't understand is how are they not able to compete with these other programs with Microsoft and Boeing and Weyerhaeuser and Amazon and all these companies that are in this city that no doubt, Jordan, have got to have a plethora of University of Washington graduates who are probably high up in these companies. So why are they not striking on those deals with those companies?
You know what? That's a great question. That's something that I brought up inside the football office. That's a phenomenal question because Cameron Elisera, who's done an amazing job. I played football with him at UW. He's on the staff there at UW, and that is what we talk about building at Washington. And for whatever reason, Washington was slow playing and not getting out there and getting that money. And I don't know if it was an issue. Obviously, when Chris Peterson was there, 100% against NIL paying players. He didn't want to be a part of it. Recruiting was all about what we can bring to the program, how we build men up, all that stuff. Then you get to obviously Coach Lake, that was obviously off the the Coach Peterson tree. Didn't work out. Then we get to Coach DeBoer, who just wasn't interested in recruiting as he was in X's and O's. And so for me, we were a little bit behind the eight ball because we never had a coach that really embraced NIL until now. So right now, Coach Fisch is all about NIL. We have to raise money. We have to compete in the Big Ten. They're putting together a new program to compete in the Big Ten. But you're absolutely right. The Huskies out there, and they're everywhere, especially in the Seattle market. You talk about these companies that have millions upon millions to burn, and especially in the NIL, they have to start ponying up money for this program if they want to see us at an Oregon level. Oregon has one very, very big, very important donor that wants to see them win a national championship. So it's a little different in terms of Oregon, and like USC is similar to Washington, where they have this huge market, tons and tons of businesses, connections everywhere. USC is probably a lot bigger nationally, obviously, than UW in terms of alumni. But for whatever reason, they're not able to get the NIL money like Oregon is. And for me, it's all about finding that sugar daddy, right?
Yeah.
You got to find that one guy that's high up in one company, and then you got to work him.
But you also do need, and I don't know this, and I can speak more to what the Cougar Collective is all about, but like Montlake Futures, is there the people that you talk with? Are alums engaged with it? Is it overkill? Because you've got, and I would assume that there's, like Cougar fans would probably say it's hard for me to pick one of them. Like it's either the Cougar Athletic Fund or Cougar Collective. I mean, now there's a lot that do both. But I would assume most schools go through the same issue, and I don't know if it's like that. I would assume it's like that at UW, Jordan. That you're being asked to spend Montlake Futures and then the Husky Athletic Fund,
right?
And no, there's very few people that have expendable income. You know what I mean?
Now. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so but I don't know if it's a large school, right? It's I don't know, what is 45,000? How big is UW? 45,000, 48?
45,000, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you would just think that there's a greater pool to pull from, but of your friends and alums that you've talked to, are they all in on the collective or not?
So there's a lot of guys that played that aren't in love with NIL. They're not in love with going out and plucking guys from another program and then plugging them. It's such a
You're talking about former teammates.
Former teammates, yes. So this is former players, alumni alike. And I was that way. I mean, I wanted to build a program, but then you get Michael Penix and some of these guys last year. These guys made a lot of money. Okay, Puck. These guys made, I'm talking 7 figures at Washington. So Roman Dunze to come back, Michael Penix. These guys made a lot of money. We brought a ton of money in to bring those guys in. The difference is now is that we don't need 1 or 2 guys, Puck. We need an offensive line. We're going to need – so it was a different problem this year than last year in terms of offensive linemen are really tough to bring in. Oregon's not bringing in offensive linemen very often. They're bringing in Jabbar Muhammad, right, for $1 million.
Right.
They're bringing in Trayshawn. They're bringing in these receivers, these quarterbacks. So that's where you make your money on NIL. And Washington is – don't get me wrong. Washington is raising money. Washington, it will be a top 20, 30 program in terms of raising money for the NIL. But you're right. We need to do more. But it doesn't need to come from guys like me or the guy like you at Wazoo. There has to be guys that have disposable income that's putting it somewhere else, maybe another charity or whatever it might be. Because if you want to compete, it takes money, right?
Yeah, I mean, nowadays it does. Yeah, I mean, this is until they have some type of
cap.
Regulation on it. I wanted to say relegate, regulation on it. Yeah, it's just the I just see it all the time of fatigue. And I think people have got fatigue with it all. But I think ultimately at the end of the day, it's you have to treat it you've got to treat it, I think, for the most case, like in a way, baseball. I mean, baseball, you can buy players and all that, and
Right.
certainly you see that, but you got to do it through the draft. In the draft being
I
being
agree.
recruitment, and then you supplement a couple, like you said, a couple of players with
Yes.
the portal. But that's a long-term play, and I think what you fall into is if you're trying to take over a program and get a quick fix and compete right away, and then you're like, I need $25 million. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's very few programs that can pull that off.
No, and I think you're right. I think that we've seen that now where Colorado is a good example, where Colorado spent a lot of money the first year with Dion was there to try to get guys in and try to patchwork a program. And they go 3-8 or whatever it was, 4-8. This year, they bring back their key guys. They have some more portal guys, but now those guys that are now good and starting on the offensive line have a year under their belt, right? Where nothing's going to happen in a year, is what I've found.
Yeah.
I was optimistic about Washington football. They have an opportunity to get to 6, 7, 8 games with a bowl game. I mean, there's which is not terrible, right? But the problem is that in a situation like Washington was in, the portal was not it had to be the answer, but it wasn't going to be an answer that we all liked where they're going to get to 10 wins, because you can't build an offense and defensive line totally from the portal, right? Well, we got Jonah Coleman and, some of these great players, out of the portal. I mean, Will Rogers has played really well outside of a couple bonehead plays. So, I mean, but the issue is like you said, I'm with you 100%. You have to be building your program with those 3-star guys, those maybe couple 4-star guys that stay there for 2-3 years. And then, like similar to me, I didn't start until my junior year.
Right.
I mean, I had to watch guys and want to get better and understand how to play football at that level. And then you get there, and now you're the leader. Now, and that's how you have good leadership.
Can you afford that anymore in this day and age?
It's going to be tough.
Stay there 3 years, to build it up, and then
it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, but that's what I hate about it, though. I mean, because that was my program. When I was a junior and senior, that I felt like I had been built and developed to where I could play at that level, right? And play at a high level. And guys are different now. They have guys that come out of high school but they're few and far between. I mean, you spread out maybe 100 guys throughout the country of guys that are coming out of high school and they're ready to play. It just doesn't happen that often, especially offensive, defensive linemen.
Right.
I mean, but to me, when you talk about the NIL is programs that now have to play the NIL game during the season. You talk about our backup quarterback. You talk about your quarterback at Washington State. You telling me those guys aren't playing defense right now on the tier?
Well, of course. I mean, I think they've been playing defense all year long.
And it's the same way at Washington. It's changed so much, Puck, and even talking to guys within Washington's program, it has changed just in the last year, 2 years. I mean, it's a totally different ballgame.
Yeah.
Totally different ballgame. And not just with NLI guys on your team, but even bringing recruits in. Recruits want a $5,000 bonus to come on a visit.
Yeah.
It's unreal. Oregon's paying guys to come on visits.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's madness.
What do you think about we Cougar fans, some of us, we got to pull for you guys now.
I know. I love it. I love. Well, and what's funny is I love listening to Jim. I love you guys' show. You guys do an awesome job too. And I know Jim. He always hates when I root for the Cougs and tell But I love Jim saying, I'd rather us not make the playoff and have the Huskies.
He's brain dead. He's absolutely brain dead.
But that's what makes the rivalry so great. I love it. And he even won this year, and they're having this amazing year. They're 7-1 or whatever. They're 20 or whatever, 18 in the country. And he's like, I don't really care about how we finish, but I want the Huskies to lose. But I love it. It's funny.
For those who don't know, if you didn't listen to us this week, he posed a hypothetical to Jim Moore to me that would you want to see Washington beat like Penn State and Oregon, and the Cougars finish 12th and get into the college football playoff? Or would you rather have Washington get blown out by 50 to Penn State and Oregon, and then the Cougs finish 13th? I said I'd rather them win and take the 12th spot, be in the playoff. And Jim's like, yeah, no way. I want to get them blown out, and then we miss the playoffs. I think he regrets saying it.
No way. He's going to stand on business.
I think deep
he's going to stand on business. Jim owns that. That is so funny, though, because I can read Jim's mind. Whether it's a bad bet that he's going to make, he's going to go all in, or it's something like this where, I mean, he just, for whatever reason, and I know the reason, I mean, there's been some rough losses as a Coug, He is so bitter against the Huskies. I love it, because it's, even though they're doing so well and they have this, great opportunity right now to do something they've never done. He wants the Huskies to lose by 50. I love it.
Do you, last week, it was a discussion about a bowl game. Is that important to you? Elise was fired up, but it's important to her. For you, I mean, you played, you're in Gridiron. Is it important that they get to 6 wins and play in a game?
This team is 100%. I mean, it is so important for this specific team to get to a bowl game and play well in the bowl game and have everybody play. They asked Will Rogers this during the week. If this team gets an opportunity to play in the bowl game, are you going to sit out? And he says, no, man. He says, I'm not that type of guy. I'm there to fight with my brothers. I thought that was a great answer. And same with Coach Fisch. Those 15 practices, this group is going to be at one time playing for a championship at one time. So these young guys that are there, it'll be very beneficial for them to get those 15 practices, because next year the expectations are going to be back to where they are, realistic or not, right? Because the recruiting class looks good for Washington. They're a top 20 recruiting class right now. I think they're at 19 right now. And obviously they're looking to spend some money in the portal because we have to fill some of those holes that are still there. But we're going to be able to backfill some of that stuff, like you said, and I like, with guys that are in the program, right?
There he is, Jordan Reffett. It's Puck the Huskies podcast, all brought to you by Georgetown Brewery. You're confident that they will take out Penn State on Saturday. Do you have, score? You have a score prediction?
I have a score. I think it's going to be a freaking barn burner in the whiteout, and the Huskies are going to win 23-21. Huskies win. 23-21.
There you go. Book it. Georgetown Brewery brings you Puck the Huskies, locally owned and operated by 2 diehard Huskies. Manny and Raja, they've been pouring the best local craft beer for the past 23 years. Makers of Manny's Pale Ale, Bodie's Off, and your other favorite beers. Tap room open 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week. Visit them at georgetownbeer.com. You can catch this episode and all episodes of Puck the Huskies with Jordan Reffett and Elise Woodward up on YouTube. Listen to them on Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. And, of course, up at pucksports.com. All right, Jordan, we'll talk to you next week. We'll see if Elise can bother us with her time.
Big time.